The sun beat down on the Pride lands, but the heat wasn't the only thing making the animals uneasy. A strange, unsettling silence had fallen over the land. The usual cheerful songs of birds were gone, and the playful chatter of monkeys was replaced by nervous whispers. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Kion, leader of the Lion Guard, felt it too. A prickling sensation ran down his spine as he surveyed the land from Pride Rock. The savannah, usually vibrant with life, seemed dull and lifeless. He glanced at his friends, Bunga, the brave honey badger, Besht, the strong hippopotamus, Fully, the speedy cheetah, and Ono, the keen-eyed egret. They all wore expressions of concern. Something spooking everyone, Fully stated, twitching her ears. Even the gazelles are jumpier than usual. I've seen fewer animals at the watering hole all week. Besht added, his brow furrowed. It's like they're hiding. Ono, cerknen o overhead, suddenly squawked. Hapana, I see a dust cloud rising near the outlands. It's big and it's moving fast, towards the Pride lands. Kion's heart pounded. We need to check it out. Lion Guard, till the Pride lands end. Lion Guard defend. They raced towards the dust cloud, their paws pounding against the dry earth. As they got closer, they saw the cause of the commotion. A swarm of strange, spiky creatures, unlike anything they'd ever seen, was rampaging across the land. They were tearing up the grass, scaring away the animals, and leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. What are those things? Bunga exclaimed, dodging one of the creatures as it rolled past. I don't know, Kion replied, but we have to stop them. The Lion Guard sprang into action. Besht used his size and strength to push the creatures back, while Fuli used her speed to herd them away from the fleeing animals. Bunga, fearless as always, dove into the swarm, distracting them with his antics. Ono, from above, guided them, warning them of dangers. Kion unleashed the roar of the elders, a powerful force that sent a shock wave through the ground, scattering the creatures. But there were too many. They kept coming, relentless and destructive. The Lion Guard fought bravely, but they were starting to tire. They needed help, and fast. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the ravaged land, Kion knew they couldn't hold out much longer. Hope seemed to dwindle with each passing moment. The Pride lands were in serious danger, and the Lion Guard was struggling to protect it. What could they do? Just when their strength was about to fail, a cackling sound echoed across the plains. It was a sound that sent shivers down Kion's spine, the unmistakable laughter of hyenas. But this time, it was different. It wasn't the menacing, cruel laughter he remembered from Scar's pack. This laughter held a hint of urgency. From behind a rocky outcrop, a group of hyenas emerged, led by a slightly older, scarred hyena with surprisingly kind eyes. Kion recognized her, Jasiri, a hyena who had always been different, who had shown compassion and understanding even when others hadn't. Jasiri, Kion asked, his voice laced with suspicion. What are you doing here? Jasiri stepped forward, her gaze steady. Kion, we know about these creatures. They're called spike rollers, and they're a plague. They've been driven from their usual lands, and now they're heading everywhere, destroying everything. And why should we believe you? Fully snarled, her hackles raised. You're still hyenas. You were with Scar. That was a long time ago, Jasiri replied, her voice calm. We've made our own path. We don't want to see the Pride lands destroyed any more than you do. We know their weaknesses. We know how to stop them. Bunga, ever the optimist, piped up. Well, they do seem to know a lot about those spiky things. Besh nodded slowly. And we are running out of options, Kion. Kion hesitated. Trusting hyenas, especially those who had once been aligned with Scar, was a dangerous proposition. But the desperation in Jasiri's eyes seemed genuine. And they were right. They were losing this fight. What do you suggest? Kion asked, his voice guarded. These spike rollers are afraid of water, Jasiri explained. If we can lure them towards the river, the current will sweep them away. But we need to create a diversion, something to draw them in that direction. And you need our help, Kion finished, his eyes narrowing. Yes, Jasiri admitted. We can't do it alone. But if we work together, we can save the Pride Lands. Kion looked at his friends, then back at Jasairi and her pack. He knew this was a huge risk. Trusting the hyenas could be a terrible mistake. But if they didn't try, the Pride Lands were doomed. All right, Kion said, his voice firm. We'll do it. But I'm watching you, Jasairi. One wrong move, and this alliance is over. Jasairi nodded, a flicker of gratitude in her eyes. You won't regret this, Kion. Let's save the Pride Lands. The Uneasy Alliance set their plan in motion. Jasairi explained that the key was to create a scent trail that would attract the spike rollers. They would use a mixture of berries and a special type of mud that the creatures seemed drawn to. The hyenas, with their keen sense of smell, would lead the way, while the lion guard would protect the flanks, ensuring no innocent animals got caught in the stampede. As they moved, the tension was palpable. Fully kept her eyes glued to the hyenas, ready to pounce at the slightest sign of treachery. Bunga, despite his usual cheerfulness, remained close to Besht, seeking reassurance. Ono scanned the skies, alert for any threats, both from the spike rollers and from the hyenas themselves. Kion walked beside Jasairi, his expression unreadable. So, Jasairi, he began, tell me more about these spike rollers. Where do they come from? Jasairi hesitated for a moment. They come from the far side of the Outlands, a place few animals ever go. The land there is barren and dry, and food is scarce. Something must have driven them out. Something like what? Kion pressed. Jasairi shrugged. I don't know for sure. Maybe a fire. Maybe they just ate all the plants and needed to find more food. Kion didn't entirely believe her. He sensed she was holding something back, but he decided to let it go for now. They had more pressing matters to attend to. The scent trail was working. The spike rollers, their spiky bodies rolling and bouncing across the ground, were following the trail with surprising speed. The ground trembled beneath their advance, and the air filled with their strange, grating noises. As they approached a narrow canyon, Jasairi turned to Kion. This is where we make our stand. The canyon will funnel them towards the river. The lion guard will need to create a barricade at the entrance to keep them from scattering. Kion nodded. Lion guard, let's move. Besht used his strength to push large boulders into place, creating a makeshift wall. Fully used her speed to gather thorny bushes, adding another layer of defense. Bunga, with his usual resourcefulness, found a patch of stinging nettles and spread them around the base of the barricade, hoping to deter the spike rollers. As the spike rollers surged towards a canyon, Kion unleashed the roar, creating a powerful gust of wind that pushed the creatures forward. They tumbled into the canyon, their momentum carrying them towards the river. But as they reached the riverbank, something unexpected happened. A group of spike rollers, larger and more aggressive than the others, broke away from the main pack and charged towards the lion guard. They had somehow anticipated the trap. They're smarter than we thought. Ono cried out. The lion guard braced themselves for the attack. This was going to be a difficult fight, and Kion couldn't shake the feeling that Jasairi and the hyenas knew more than they were letting on. Had they led them into a trap? Was this alliance already falling apart? Jasairi, Kion roared, his eyes blazing. What is the meaning of this? Did you know they would do this? Jasairi looked genuinely surprised. No, I swear, Kion, I didn't. We thought they would all follow the scent trail to the river. Then how did they know about the barricade? Fully demanded, dodging a swipe from one of the spike rollers. I don't know, Jasairi stammered, her eyes darting nervously. Kion didn't have time to dwell on Jasairi's possible betrayal. He had to protect his friends. Lion guard, defend. Besht charged forward, slamming into the spike rollers with his massive bulk. Fully used her speed to confuse them, darting in and out of their ranks. Bunga, as always, threw himself into the fray, biting and scratching at their legs. Ono, from above, provided aerial support, pecking at their eyes and guiding his friends. Kion unleashed the roar again, sending a shockwave that knocked several of the spike rollers off their feet. But they kept coming, their spiky bodies making them difficult to grab or injure. Suddenly, Jasairi and her hyenas joined the fight, leaping into the fray with surprising ferocity. They nipped at the spike rollers' heels, distracting them and creating openings for the lion guard to attack. "We're on your side, Kion," Jasiri shouted as she dodged a rolling spike roller. "We'll help you stop them." Kion watched, his mind racing. Were the hyenas truly helping, or was this all part of some elaborate scheme? He couldn't be sure, but for now, he had no choice but to accept their assistance. Together, the lion guard and the hyenas fought with renewed vigor. They slowly began to gain the upper hand, pushing the spike rollers back towards the river. Finally, with a combined effort, they managed to drive the remaining spike rollers into the water. The current swept them away, carrying them downstream and out of the Pride Lands. Exhausted but victorious, the lion guard and the hyenas stood on the riverbank, panting. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the land. "Well," Bungus said, breaking the silence, "that was spiky." Kion turned to Jasiri, his expression stern. "We need to talk. Now, how did those spike rollers know about the barricade? And why did they attack us?" Jasiri sighed. "There's something I haven't told you, Kion. Something I didn't want to admit." She paused, taking a deep breath. "The spike rollers, they're being controlled. Someone is leading them, directing them where to go and what to destroy." "Control?" Kion asked, his eyes widening. "By who?" Jasiri hesitated again, her gaze shifting nervously. By someone who wants to see the Pride Lands suffer. Someone who has a grudge against you, Kion." "Who?" Kion pressed, his voice low and dangerous. "Tell me who is behind this." Jasiri looked at Kion, her eyes filled with fear. It's Kiburi." "Kiburi," Kion echoed, a look of disbelief on his face. Kiburi was a grumpy crocodile who lived in the backwaters of the Pride Lands. He was known for his bad temper, but Kion never imagined he would orchestrate something like this. "But why?" Kion asked. "Why would Kiburi want to control the spike rollers and attack the Pride Lands?" Jasiri shrugged. "He's always been jealous of Alliance. He thinks we get all the best hunting grounds and all the respect. He probably sees this as a way to even the score." "We have to stop him," Kion said, his voice filled with determination. "If he's controlling the spike rollers, who knows what he'll do next?" "We know where he is," Jasiri said. "He's been hiding out in the old termite mounds near the Whispering Caves. It's a dangerous place, but it's the only way he can control the spike rollers from afar." "Then that's where we're going," Kion declared. "Lion Guard with me. Jasiri, lead the way." And so, the uneasy alliance set off towards the Whispering Caves. The journey was fraught with peril. The Pride Lands, already ravaged by the spike rollers, were now even more dangerous. Fallen trees blocked their path, and deep ravines threatened to swallow them whole. The hyenas' knowledge of the Pride Lands proved invaluable. They knew secret pathways and hidden shortcuts that allowed them to navigate the treacherous terrain with ease. They pointed out hidden dangers, like sinkholes and venomous snakes, that the Lion Guard would have otherwise missed. Despite the dangers, Kion couldn't shake the feeling that something was still amiss. Jasiri seemed to be avoiding his gaze, and her answers to his questions were often vague and evasive. He couldn't shake the feeling that she was still hiding something. As they approached the Whispering Caves, the air grew heavy and still. The only sound was the rustling of leaves and the distant echo of water dripping in the caves. "We're almost there," Jasiri whispered, her voice barely audible. "Kiburi's hideout is just beyond those trees." Kion nodded, his senses on high alert. He knew that Kiburi would be expecting them, and he would be ready to fight. "Lion Guard," Kion said, his voice low and serious. "Be prepared for anything. We don't know what Kiburi has planned." As they stepped into the clearing, they saw it. The old termite mounds, towering above them like ancient castles. And in the center of the mounds, a familiar figure. Kiburi, the grumpy crocodile, stood surrounded by a group of spike rollers, his eyes gleaming with malice. Well, Kiburi sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "If it isn't Kion and his little friends. And what do we have here? The hyenas? I thought you were smarter than to trust those scavengers, Kion." "Kiburi," Kion said, his voice firm. "It's over. Release the spike rollers and surrender." Kiburi laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the clearing. Surrender? Never. The Pride Lands will be mine, Kion, and you and your little friends will be the first to fall. And with that, Kaburi unleashed the spike rollers, sending them charging towards the Lion Guard and the hyenas. The final battle had begun. The spike rollers charged, a chaotic mass of spiky bodies rolling towards them. The Lion Guard and the hyenas braced themselves for the impact. For the Pride Lands, Kion roared, unleashing the roar of the elders. The powerful blast of wind sent a wave of spike rollers tumbling backwards, creating a temporary opening in their ranks. Besh charged forward, slamming into the creatures with his massive bulk, while Fuli used her speed to outmaneuver them, nipping at their heels. Bunga, fearless as always, dove into the fray, causing chaos and confusion. Ono, from above, provided aerial support, guiding his friends and pecking at the spike roller's eyes. Jasairi and her hyenas fought bravely, tearing into the creatures with their sharp teeth and claws. They were a surprisingly effective fighting force, their knowledge of the spike roller's weaknesses proving invaluable. But as the battle raged, Kion couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He noticed that Jasairi seemed to be focusing her attacks on the smaller, weaker spike rollers, while avoiding the larger, more aggressive ones. And he saw her exchange a furtive glance with one of her hyenas, a glance that seemed to convey a secret message. During a brief lull in the fighting, Kion confronted Jasairi. "Why are you holding back?" he demanded, his voice low and accusing. "Why aren't you attacking the bigger spike rollers?" Jasairi looked away, her expression evasive. "They're too dangerous," she said. "I don't want to risk getting hurt." "That's not the real reason, is it?" Kion pressed. "Where are you hiding, Jasairi?" Jasairi hesitated, then sighed. "All right, Kion, you deserve the truth, but you're not going to like it." She lowered her voice, speaking so only Kion could hear. The spike rollers, they're not just being controlled by Kaburi, they're also being enhanced. He's using a special type of magic to make them stronger and more aggressive. "Magic?" Kion scoffed. "There's no such thing as magic. There is in the Outlands," Jasairi insisted. "There are dark forces at work there, forces that Scar used to control. Kaburi has somehow tapped into that power, and he's using it to turn the spike rollers into unstoppable monsters." "And you knew about this?" Kion asked, his voice filled with anger. "You knew that Kaburi was using magic, and you didn't tell me." Jasairi hung her head in shame. "I was afraid," she admitted. "I didn't want to believe it, and I didn't want you to think that I was still connected to Scar's dark magic." Kion stared at Jasairi, his heart pounding. He didn't know what to believe. Was she telling the truth? Or was this just another lie, another attempt to manipulate him? He couldn't be sure. But one thing was certain. The situation had just become a whole lot more complicated. The Pride Lands weren't just facing a swarm of spike rollers. They were facing a force of dark magic, a force that threatened to corrupt everything they held dear. "Dark magic," Kion repeated, his voice filled with skepticism. "I don't believe it. There has to be another explanation." "I wish there was," Jasairi said, her voice filled with despair. "But I've seen it with my own eyes. Kaburi is using a dark artifact, an ancient amulet that amplifies his power and allows him to control the spike rollers." "An amulet?" Ono squawked, circling overhead. "I saw something shiny around Kaburi's neck earlier. I thought it was just a trinket, but—" "It's the amulet," Jasairi confirmed. "It's the source of his power. If we can destroy it, we can break his control over the spike rollers." "Then that's what we have to do," Kion said, his voice firm. "We have to get that amulet away from Kaburi." "But how?" Kaburi was surrounded by spike rollers, and he was clearly prepared for a fight. Getting close to him would be incredibly dangerous. As Kion pondered their next move, he noticed something strange. One of Jasairi's hyenas, a small, nervous-looking hyena named Tunu, was acting oddly. He kept glancing towards the termite mounds, and he seemed to be trying to avoid eye contact with Jasairi. Kion approached Tunu cautiously. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice gentle. "You seem nervous." Tunu hesitated, then blurted out, "I know where the amulet is hidden." Kion's eyes widened. "Hidden? What do you mean?" "Kiburi doesn't wear the amulet all the time. Tanu explained. He only puts it on when he needs to control the spike rollers. When he's not using it, he hides it in a secret chamber inside one of the termite mounds. And you know where this chamber is? Kion asked, his voice filled with hope. Tuna nodded. I used to sneak around the termite mound when I was a cub. I accidentally stumbled upon the chamber. I didn't know what it was back then, but now I realize that's where Kiburi keeps the amulet. This was a game changer. If they could sneak into the termite mounds and steal the amulet, they could defeat Kiburi without having to fight him directly. But could they trust Tonu? Was he telling the truth? Or was this just another trap, another attempt to lead them astray? Kion looked at Jasairi, his expression questioning. Can we trust him? Jasairi hesitated, then nodded slowly. Tonu is different. He's always been a bit of a loner. But he's loyal, and he would never betray us. Kion took a deep breath. He had to trust his instincts. And his instincts told him that Tunu was telling the truth. All right, Kion said, his voice firm. Tunu, show us the way. We're going to get that amulet. As Tunu led them towards the termite mounds, Kion couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. But he had no choice. The fate of the Pride Lands depended on it. Tunu led Kion, Fuli, and Bunga towards the largest of the termite mounds, while Jasairi, Besht, and Ono remained behind to distract Kiburi and the spike rollers. The air inside the termite mound was thick with dust and the scent of damp earth. The tunnels were narrow and winding, making it difficult to see what lay ahead. Are you sure this is the right way? Kion whispered, his voice echoing in the confined space. Yes, Tanu replied, his voice trembling slightly. I remember it clearly. The chamber is just beyond this next turn. As they rounded the corner, they saw it. A small, circular chamber, dimly lit by a faint glow emanating from within. And in the center of the chamber, resting on a pedestal made of mud, was the amulet. It was a beautiful, yet sinister-looking object, crafted from obsidian and adorned with glowing red stones. Kion approached the amulet cautiously, his heart pounding. He reached out to grab it, but suddenly, a voice echoed through the chamber. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Kion whirled around to see Jasairi, standing in the entrance to the chamber, her expression grim. Jasairi, Kion asked, his voice filled with confusion. What are you doing here? I thought you were distracting Kiburi. I was, Jasairi said, her voice strained. But I can't let you take that amulet, Kion. What are you talking about? Kion demanded. That amulet is the source of Kiburi's power. If we destroy it, we can save the Pride Lands. That's what I thought too, Jasairi said. But I was wrong. The amulet isn't just controlling the spike rollers. It's also protecting them. Protecting them? Kion asked, his brow furrowed. From what? Jasairi took a deep breath. From the truth, she said. The truth about why they're attacking the Pride Lands in the first place. What truth? Kion pressed. Tell me, Jasairi. What are you hiding? Jasairi hesitated, then sighed. The spike rollers aren't just being controlled by Kiburi, she said. They're also being driven. They're fleeing from something terrible that's happening in the Outlands. What is it? Kion asked, his voice filled with urgency. What are they running from? Jasairi looked away, her eyes filled with fear. They're running from a fire, she whispered. A fire that's consuming everything in its path. A fire? Kion asked, his voice filled with disbelief. But fires are natural. They happen all the time in the Outlands. This isn't a natural fire, Jasairi said, her voice trembling. This is a fire that's being controlled, a fire that's being used as a weapon. And it's being controlled by Scar's spirit. Kion gasped. Scar's spirit? But he's gone. He's been defeated. His body is gone, Jasairi said, but his spirit, his darkness, it still lingers in the Outlands. And now, it's found a new way to torment the Pride Lands. And you knew about this? Kion asked, his voice filled with anger and betrayal. You knew that Scar's spirit was behind this, and you didn't tell me. Jasairi hung her head in shame. I was afraid, she said. I was afraid that you wouldn't believe me. And I was afraid that you would blame me, that you would think I was still connected to Scar's darkness. But why are you helping me now? Kion asked, If you're so afraid of Scar's spirit, why are you risking your life to help us? Jasiri looked at Kion, her eyes filled with determination. Because I know that Scar's darkness can only be defeated by light, she said. And I believe that you, Kion, are the only one who can bring that light to the Outlands. Kion stared at Jasiri, his mind reeling. Scar's spirit? A fire in the Outlands? It was almost too much to comprehend. Could he really trust her? She had lied to him, concealed vital information. How could he be sure she wasn't still working for Scar, or at least for his dark legacy? I don't know what to believe anymore, Kion said, his voice filled with frustration. You've lied to me from the beginning. How can I trust anything you say? I know I've made mistakes, Jasiri said, her voice pleading, but I'm telling you the truth now. Scar's spirit is a threat to everyone, even the hyenas. We have to stop him before he destroys everything. But how? Kion asked. How can we fight a spirit? And how can we stop a fire that's already consuming the Outlands? We need the amulet, Jasiri said. It's not just protecting the spike rollers, it's also amplifying Scar's power. If we can find a way to use it against him, we might have a chance. Use it against him? Kion asked, his brow furrowed. Ow, I don't know yet, Jasiri admitted. But I know that the amulet has a connection to the spirit world. Maybe we can use that connection to weaken Scar, to sever his control over the fire. Kion looked at Fuli and Bunga, who were watching the exchange with wide eyes. He knew he had a difficult choice to make. He could continue to trust Jasiri, despite her deception, and risk leading his friends into a trap. Or he could abandon the alliance and try to face Scar's spirit alone, knowing that he would likely fail. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him. The fate of the Pride Lands, and perhaps even the entire circle of life, rested on his shoulders. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and listened to his heart. What did his instincts tell him? What did his gut say? He opened his eyes and looked at Jasiri, his expression resolute. I'm going to trust you, he said, his voice firm. But if you betray me again, if I find out that you're still working for Scar, I will never forgive you. Jasiri nodded, a flicker of gratitude in her eyes. You won't regret this, Kion, she said. I promise. All right, Kion said. Then let's figure out how to use this amulet to stop Scar's spirit. We don't have much time. But as they began to discuss their plan, a loud roar echoed through the termite mounds. Kiburi had discovered their deception. The final battle was about to begin. And this time, it wasn't just about controlling the spike rollers. It was about saving the Pride Lands from the clutches of Scar's vengeful spirit. He knows we're here, Fuli exclaimed, her eyes widening with alarm. We have to get out of here. Not yet, Kion said, his voice firm. We have a plan to make. But Kion, Bunga protested, Kiburi is going to attack. We can't stay here. We don't have a choice, Kion said. If we run, he'll just chase us. We have to stand our ground and fight. He turned to Jasiri, his expression serious. We need to use the amulet, but how? Do you know anything about its power? Jasiri shook her head. I only know what I've heard in stories. The amulet is said to be a gateway to the spirit world. It can amplify the power of those who wield it, but it can also corrupt them. Corrupt them? Kion asked, his brow furrowed. What do you mean? The amulet is filled with dark energy, Jasiri explained. If you're not careful, it can consume you, turning you into a vessel for Scar's darkness. Kion hesitated. The amulet sounded incredibly dangerous, but they had no other choice. They had to take the risk. All right, Kion said. Then we'll have to be careful. We'll use the amulet to weaken Scar's spirit, but we won't let it control us. He looked at his friends, his eyes filled with determination. We're going to do this together, he said. We're going to show Kiburi and Scar's spirit that the Pride Lands will not be defeated. He turned to Fuli and Bunga. I need you two to create a diversion, he said. Lure Kiburi and the spike rollers away from the termite mounds. Give us time to work with the amulet. Fuli and Bunga nodded, their expressions resolute. We're on it, Kion, Fuli said. Zuka Zama, Bunga exclaimed, charging towards the entrance to the termite mound. As Fuli and Bunga raced off to create their diversion, Kion turned to Jasiri and Tanu. We need to find a safe place to use the amulet, he said. Somewhere hidden where we can't be disturbed. Tunu nodded. I know a place, he said. There's a small chamber deep inside the termite mounds. It's hidden behind a false wall. No one will find us there. Then lead the way, Kion said. Let's go stop Scar's spirit once and for all. As they ventured deeper into the termite mounds, Kion couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into the unknown. But he knew that he had to trust Jasiri and Tunu. They were his only hope. They reached the secret chamber, a small, circular space barely large enough for the three of them. Kion placed the amulet on a small pedestal in the center of the chamber. The amulet glowed with an eerie red light, filling the space with an unsettling energy. All right, Kion said, taking a deep breath. Let's do this. He reached out and touched the amulet, and suddenly, a surge of power coursed through his body. He felt a connection to the spirit world, a connection to Scar's darkness. He closed his eyes, focused his mind, and began to channel the power of the amulet, hoping to sever Scar's control over the fire and save the Pride Lands from his vengeful spirit. Outside the termite mounds, chaos reigned. Fuli, with her lightning speed, darted around Kiburi and the spike rollers, taunting them and leading them on a wild chase. Bunga, with his fearless antics, created diversions, dropping stink bombs and pulling tails, causing confusion and disarray. Get them! Kiburi roared, his voice filled with rage. Don't let them escape. But Fuli and Bunga were too quick. They led Kiburi and the spike rollers further and further away from the termite mounds, giving Kion, Jasiri, and Tunu the time they needed to work their magic. Inside the secret chamber, Kion struggled to control the amulet's power. The dark energy surged through his body, threatening to overwhelm him, to consume him with Scar's hatred and vengeance. You can't let it control you, Kion, Jasiri urged, her voice filled with concern. You have to fight it. Kion closed his eyes, focused on the light within him, on the love he had for his friends, for his family, for the Pride Lands. He channeled that light, pushing back against the darkness, struggling to maintain control. He reached out with his mind, seeking out Scar's spirit, reaching across the barrier between the physical world and the spirit world. He found it, a swirling vortex of darkness, a burning inferno of hatred and rage. Kion focused all his energy, all his light, and channeled it through the amulet, sending a wave of pure energy towards Scar's spirit. The energy struck the vortex of darkness, causing it to shudder and convulse. Scar's spirit roared in defiance, unleashing a wave of dark energy that slammed into Kion, knocking him to the ground. Kion, Jasiri cried, rushing to his side. Are you all right? Kion struggled to his feet, his body trembling. I'm okay, he said, but I don't know how much longer I can hold on. Outside, the ground began to tremble. The fire in the outlands, fueled by Scar's spirit, was growing stronger, spreading faster. The Pride Lands were in imminent danger. Kion knew that he had to act fast. He closed his eyes again, reached out to Scar's spirit, and unleashed the full power of the Roar of the Elders. The roar, amplified by the amulet, struck Scar's spirit with the force of 1,000 storms. The vortex of darkness shattered, the burning inferno extinguished. Scar's spirit was finally defeated. As Scar's spirit faded away, the fire in the outlands began to die down. The ground stopped trembling, and the air grew still. Outside the termite mounds, Kiburi and the spike rollers collapsed, their minds freed from Scar's control. They were no longer a threat. The final battle was over. The Pride Lands were safe. For now, the Pride Lands were silent once more, but this time, it was a peaceful silence. The sun shone brightly, casting a warm glow over the land. The birds sang their cheerful songs, and the monkeys chattered playfully in the trees. Life had returned to normal. Kion, Jasiri, and the Lion Guard emerged from the termite mounds, exhausted but victorious. They were greeted by a crowd of grateful animals, who cheered and celebrated their triumph. Even Kiburi, humbled by his experience, offered a grudging apology to Kion. I was wrong, he said, his voice low. The Pride Lands are better off with you protecting them. Kion smiled and clapped Kaburi on the back. It's okay, Kaburi, he said. We all make mistakes. The important thing is that we learn from them. But the greatest moment came when Kion turned to Jasairi. I was wrong about you, Jasairi, he said, his voice filled with sincerity. I judge you based on your past, on your association with Scar. But you've proven that you're different. You're a true friend to the Pride Lands. Jasairi smiled, her eyes sparkling with happiness. Thank you, Kion, she said. That means a lot to me. Kion knew that the hyenas would never be fully accepted by all the animals of the Pride Lands. There would always be some who harbored suspicion and distrust. But he also knew that it was important to give them a chance, to show them that they could be part of the circle of life. From now on, Kion announced to the crowd, the hyenas are welcome in the Pride Lands. They have proven their loyalty, and they deserve a second chance. A murmur of surprise rippled through the crowd. Some animals looked skeptical, but others nodded in agreement. They had seen the hyenas fight bravely alongside the Lion Guard, and they knew that they had played a vital role in saving the Pride Lands. Of course, Kion added, with a playful grin, they'll have to follow the rules. No hunting in the Pride Lands without permission, and no causing trouble. Jasairi laughed. We understand, Kion, she said. We're just happy to be here. And so, the hyenas were welcomed cautiously into the Pride Lands. It was a new beginning, a chance for them to prove that they had truly turned over a new leaf. Kion looked out over the Pride Lands, his heart filled with hope. He had learned a valuable lesson about judging others, about the possibility of redemption, and about the importance of working together for the greater good. The Pride Lands were safe, and the circle of life had been restored. And Kion knew that, with the help of his friends, both old and new, he could face any challenge that lay ahead. The end.